We have a guest, Miss Jane Nalunga. She's the Executive Director, Southern and Eastern Africa Trade, Information and Negotiations Institute, Uganda. People call it SEATINI. You are most welcome to the Capital Gang, Miss Jane Nalunga.
Thank you so much, Oscar, and thank you so much for having me in this program.
Yes. So, we have recently had maize going to Kenya banned. Then there has been a kind of an unban, which is not a proper unban because the standards that are going with the lifting of that ban, we may not be able to manage. One wonders, is it a standards discussion or is it a trade war? Because we've had the same with with milk and with eggs in recent times. Plus, of course, the sugar.
Yeah, you could say it's a trade war, but I think we need also to look at it in a broader terms. It's an issue around standards. It's an issue around systems, the way we trade, the way we produce. But it's also an issue around regional integration as a community, the ESC community. How do we handle our trade? Are we really a community? How do we address disputes? And I'm also happy to see that Lydia is here. She's a veteran there in the East African community. So we need to look at this issue really in broader terms, beyond just the ban, because it's an eye-opener. The way our community is working or not working, there are gaps within our treaty which needs to be addressed, how disputes are addressed within the community. Because remember, it's like you said, there have been so many other issues, the sugar cane, the sugar, the milk, the eggs, but also border closures. And our president's going to Angola, for mediation. So it's the ban can be looked at as a ban, as a standalone, but it's better to look at it holistically. Okay.
Before we look at it holistically, let's look at it emotionally first. How come for us we never ban anything, we never close any border, we never, and between Kenya and Rwanda, they do this all the time. Why?
Maybe we are not very aggressive as Ugandans, but then also what the minister said, the Minister of Trade and Media, that we are going to, when the maize was brought back, she said the UNBS is going to certify it, to check it. And everybody was wondering, wasn't it checked before it left Uganda? So in a way, it shows that maybe we have a gap in the way we certify our products, in the way we trade. Because again, it isn't just Kenya which has banned our products. We have had challenges with our fish to the European Union. We had challenges of sim or sesame to German. So it isn't an isolated case. There is something.
Let me tell you
there.
something. In preparation for this show, I have a friend of mine who says he's a small farmer. He grows 250 acres of maize, and he actually confessed that the standards are very bad because there's no regulation. That the regulation has been limited to coffee. He actually told me that coffee has very stringent regulation, and it is working.
Yeah.
And maize does not. Why
that's
not?
True.
Why
that's
not?
true. And maybe it goes back to the whole issue around the way we have liberalized our economy. We are liberalized, we have privatized. Since the 1980s, the structured adjustment programs, you see that the role of the state is really, really limited when it comes to production and to trade. We have privatized, people just take what they want. They are not, like you are saying, there are no regulations. UNBS is not there on the ground. It isn't facilitated. So again, when we are looking at this issue, we need to look at what should be the role of the state.
Okay, finally a question to you. You may not know, but I'm a school manager, and a lot of that maize goes to schools. So this maize, the standard has been deemed poor when it is going to Kenya, but no one has checked it when it is going to schools. And The aflatoxins are being consumed by Ugandan children, and it's a challenge. How do we get over that?
It is true that Auditor General's report, which has just come out regarding the COVID food, COVID food, it's clear that the food wasn't good, it was bad, you know. So even on domestic, when we are talking about standards, we should first start at the domestic level. We should care about our health also, you know, the health of our children. There was a study which was carried out by an organization called UNACO in the markets in Kampala, about 5 markets, and they found out that almost 89% of the tomatoes in the market had glyphosate, you know, that white stuff. Glyphosate, you know, it's a very bad pesticide. So again, we are lax when it comes to standards.
Yeah. So, and finally from you, Jane Nalunga, SEATINI, how are you useful to us in Uganda?
SEATINI, we are also, I liked what Honorable here was talking about alternatives. We also offer alternative policies, you know. For example, like now we are saying where we are going, the whole issue of laissez-faire, market forces and privatization, and that unbridled liberalization can't work. And we have been working on these alternatives. We have been working with government when it comes to negotiations. You know, Uganda is negotiating so many trade agreements, the Continental Free Trade Area, but we are putting there that element, the people. What are the people benefiting? Where are the people? Is this agreement good for the people of Uganda and the country? So we give alternatives, we provide alternatives to all these issues.
Okay, let me go to the government spokesman, Mr. Oponopono. Kenya, we've never banned anything from them in recent times. Rwanda, we've not closed the border, but we send maize to Kenya, they send it back, and the claim is that our standards are poor, but there's a tingly something that thinks this is part of a trade war between that Kenya has between Uganda and Tanzania.
Well, first of all, I think our liberalization and privatization combined was a good thing, has been a good thing. It resuscitated the Uganda economy from the extreme doldrums where we are. Along the way, laws and policies, systems were put in place, but they have not been as effective. So, liberalization, yes, was good. It is good that the South Sudanese, whatever, people come and buy our cassava, our maize from the gardens. That's good because now, virtually anything we produce in Uganda has some market value. And so I think in that respect, the liberalization, the privatization has been a good thing. We need to put more effort in regulation, in supervision, but also sensitization and skilling the producer, particularly the primary producer. We need to do that. And there has been efforts by government to do both sensitization, to increase productivity, to increase production and quality. If you look at the last 5 years, I think, particularly in the grain and coffee producing areas, generally speaking, there is improvement in post-harvest handling. There is improvement in farm management. But there are many, many gaps that we need to deal with. In Uganda, it is not just the maize. I don't know why we waited for Kenya to ban the maize or to put stringent measures on foodstuffs. But to answer your question, whether it is a standards issue or trade war, I think it is both.
Standards and trade war?
Yes. First of all, we must acknowledge that our standards are extremely low. Of all the things poor. We do, poor. Look at construction sector. Look at education sector. Yes. Yes. You go. You go to any district in Uganda. whoever has his money and has interest will put up a school.
Let's go back to maize.
Or we'll put up a clinic.
School we shall discuss another day.
We'll put up a pharmacy, a drug shop. Regulations are there, but nobody. If you dare go and report that somebody who has a pharmacy, somebody who has a clinic in the village, in your trading center, doesn't qualify, has no qualification to be a pharmacist, to sell drugs, you will be the bad person. I have been in poultry and piggery. Yes, I've been in piggery. in piggery. If you go to Mukono, you go to Wakiso, you go to Kampala area where these things are done, you will find that somebody brings maize bran, somebody purportedly brings mukene, they mix it with sand.
Really?
So that mukene weighs, or maize bran, they mix it with the sawdust, by the way. Yes, so they mix sawdust with maize bran and the sand with yes. You have even had issues of chloroform, for example, among the butchers around Kampala. So issues of standards, issues of quality, issues of supervision is extremely lacking. But specifically to maize, in 2015, I think, the government sent a delegation to Brazil to go and market. Because at that time, I think that was the first round of production and operation wealth creation. And we had a bumper harvest of maize and beans. So the government delegation went to Brazil to search for market. They went with the samples and they were told that Uganda maize is not fit for human consumption.
Yeah.
They even said, they even added a right that they would even hesitate to give it to their animals.
Feed, yes.
Because when, for example, you spray your maize, when you give, you treat your cows, there's no traceability of what drugs you have used on the animals. There's no traceability of what you have used on your maize, on your, she's just talking about tomatoes. There's no traceability. When did you last spray the tomatoes before you picked for the market? Things like those. So we need to work a lot on issues of...
this friend of mine told me that on these days, coffee, you can no longer dry it on the ground. But maize, they do as they please.
There are few people, because in the coffee growing area, generally people are growing coffee as a commercial product. So there is some good effort in trying to make sure that your coffee is dried properly. But you have also had the complaint about people picking green coffee. Chiboko, what you call it, chiboko. You know? So government has been encouraging, sensitizing people, for example, just buying tapling and being patient so that you pick your coffee, you pick your maize when it is ready for picking. Now, if you have a small peasant economy like we have, it is difficult to tell a farmer who is facing school fees not to pick coffee and sell it because the school term has begun, so he must get money. It's difficult to tell a person. But why I'm saying there's also an element of trade war. I come from a border district, Kenya, rather in Tororo. And if you see the amount of food products that go into Kenya, they don't ask for standard. These ones that go by bicycle, these ones that go by small
foot.
trucks, by foot, by border. Maize, peas, beans, local chicken, goats, they don't ask for standards. So I suspect that they have quotas on the standards to implement a trade war. And it is
complete this as government spokesman.
It is difficult for us to argue against them when our standards are extremely low. Where we can't.
Okay. Finish your presentation as government spokesman. Yes, going forward, Uganda is going to.
First of all, initially, Kenya government did not write formally to the government of Uganda expressing these concerns. Later on, they issued a statement after I suspect, both here and among their own people. Because if you say you don't want Kenya maize, Uganda maize, you don't want Uganda chicken, what are the people in Bungoma, in Kisumu, going to eat? In Kisii, what are they going to eat? I suspect there's even domestic uproar. And so they walked back that decision. And there is negotiation going on between the government of Uganda and the government of Kenya, but also within the East African community. If you have these concerns, how do you express them in relation to the existing protocols?
Okay.
So clearly there was a mismatch of the Kenya government, because we have bilaterals, but we also have the East African protocol, which it seems they did not follow. Yes. And so the government of Uganda is saying, can we use these bilaterals and also the East African platform as we work on standards? But we must work on the standards.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The Medain Palisa says, good morning, gang. Most of our exports are substandard, and it's a leadership problem and taproot corruption. The issue is that Ugandans are now left to do what they want, even if there's liberalization, there's serious need for regulation, and that's very important. So, Lydia, Jane Nalunga says you've been in these trade wars over the years.
Yeah,
so what?
I'm not old.
No, she just said over the years. So what should Uganda be doing? When Rwanda closed the border, Lydia, when Rwanda closed border, we did nothing. And I don't know if that border has been opened. But if we can't get maize to Kenya, can't get sugar, can't get eggs, can't get milk, challenges.
I think the debate in Parliament, which I saw following the closure of Kenyan border in terms of maize, I think they needed more information. The campaign is not about Uganda also closing to reciprocate. I think the issue is to deal with the why. Because we have a Customs Union Act in place, but also a common market in place, so that our countries, which are over 140 million people, can trade borderless, and with your niche, you can be able to reap economies of scale at whatever level. But they were very firm also on standards. We have a law on standards in the ESC. So you're not going to export low standard human food for consumption, and then you go to Parliament and begin saying also close the Ugandan border. If Uganda is not interested in protecting its human the products that come to Uganda, I'm personally concerned about the textiles, Oscar. We have not yet built the Ugandan industry, but there are issues of dignity that we used to discuss and esteem. Surely, why should we be importing second-hand panties and bras? These are things of human dignity. However cheap the textile is, let it be homemade for us not to import certain textiles. That's the lowest that I think when we used to debate issues of textile for Uganda, really. For me, that one is one of those things that we thought we should have been able to come up as a country and list what type of textiles, even if they are second-hand, that can boost our economy as we grow our own textile industry. Vests, second-hand vests, underpants. So that's on one side. But like Madame Nalunga has said, we had already negotiated as ESC, a market with the EU. But Uganda had never gotten a certificate, a license to export beef. Why? Because our beef is not to the standard. It is old. I'm told the Ugandan cow, by the time it's ready for eating, it has moved, I don't know how many kilometers, about 45 kilometers. So they are not the standard that is supposed to be consumed in these markets. So we will have to reorganize ourselves. And if you are growing cattle, you grow it beef, and there are standards for. Not these ones which are moving from Katuntu's village in Ibugwedi to Chira municipality, looking for food, being beaten. No, that type of beef is not allowed in that market. So we have to reorganize our market. These are the debates that we engaged in when we were negotiating. So we negotiated the market. We were able to negotiate our market as ESC. And for some reason, Kenya has been able to begin living to the standards. Because for them, if they are growing cattle, you can see cattle being grown for beef and cattle being grown for dairy. In Uganda, I think we also grow cattle for culture and for leisure. So we mix things. and therefore we have to deal with that. Then there's what they call the sanitary standards, and this deals with things like fish and the milk. So I would like to see a debate, Honorable Semuju, Honorable Katuntu, and now Honorable Joel here, on issues of standard. Let's sit down and deal with standards in terms of market, because the market is there. We have a market in Komesa, we have a market in Sadak, Uganda. We have negotiated a very good market. My brother he has talked about a delegation going to Brazil. These delegations go. It's only COVID that stopped them. You always find people going. The markets are there. The beauty about Uganda is that we have very good organic soils, and that's why even our foods like the grain has been going on vegetables. We have very good organic soils which have not had a lot of fertilizer infiltration. So, but then we have not been able to do the grain, even just to be clean. You find rice, there are stones there. You find a portion, like has said, you find chicken feed that if you have to add value, they put dust, so dust really, and then people's chicken, and then the eggs. So when you hear that maize has been banned from going to a country, that goes the whole chain. You receive your chicken imported because chicken feeds on eggs, even some other products. So it's bigger than just maize, because maize is we can have a byproduct of so many other raw materials for other feeds and production, even manure. So we have to be serious on this and grow. Somebody saying, Nalunga said that government is thin on production, but now that's also good. It is hands-off production. Let's be very strong on regulatory management, research, laboratories. So UNBS should be very, very firm on borders, because we have an image to protect. We have a market to meet standards. We must protect people's lives. What does it and we should start home. It should, and Oscar, you are right, talk about schools, but there are hospitals, there are these security institutions that like the army, prisons, which feed on bulk deliveries of food, where people supply food. So we have to be more serious about ourselves than even what we are exporting. We should export what we feed on. Okay. So if it is bad for Kenyans, it's really bad for also Ugandans. And for every Ugandan.
Excellent comment.
So I hope that the next debate in Parliament, you can invite us who are experts to guide you, to give you. Right Honorable Speaker Semuju. Right Honorable Speaker Semuju, can you invite the Wanyotos of Uganda to brief members on what needs to be done and to direct debate as experts in our own right, so that we are able to help our country but also protect our market.
Joel Senyonyi, as someone going into Parliament, these are things you need to address yourself to. The maize, there is a standards issue, as we've all agreed, and then there's that trade war. And remember, in Uganda, we've been very hospitable. During lockdown, the one thing President Museveni did lockdown were the trucks coming in from Kenya. Do they remember these things?
One of the reasons why...
Oscar,
it's
not just Kenya.
One of the reasons why we are usually very nice to Kenya, we are hesitant to go hard on them. It's because, economically speaking, we need them more than they need us. And this is factual. So look at the Kenyan exports into Uganda in 2019. They accounted for $1.2 billion US. This is imports from Kenya to Uganda. But exports, now I'm talking about everything that comes, from Kenya and elsewhere. Actually, exports from Uganda to Kenya in 2019 accounted for $190 million US. These are figures of Export Promotions Board. $190 million US in 2019. In 2020, it was lower because of COVID-19. We accounted for $73 million US exports to Kenya from Uganda. But those from Kenya to Uganda, $1.2 billion US. It's because, of course, partly Kenya produces a lot more than we produce, but also too, Kenya is, by the sea, and Uganda is landlocked or as we like to refer to ourselves, land-linked. So we, economically speaking, need them a lot more than we do. So last year, talking about the trade wars, there was, of course, we need each other, but I'm talking about the economics here. The reason why we cannot go very hard on them, so I heard just the MP saying, let's also do this and so on. Government here has to go very slow because we'll end up burning our fingers. So last year, Ugandan traders under Uganda Manufacturers Association went to the East African Court of Justice. And they were saying Kenya is not adhering to the East African Common Market. Why? Because of the tight regulations on Ugandan products to Kenya, especially sugar, dairy products, etc., etc. Now, Kenya was saying, we are hard on your products, one, majorly because of substandard nature. They are substandard nature. That's what Kenya was saying. But let's face it, there's a lot of protectionism. Protectionism is an economic term to mean a country restricting imports, okay, to protect local production, domestic industries and all of that, such that the local market can focus more on that. So imports, they restrict such that, the local producer gets to benefit. So Kenya does a lot of that because they produce a number of these things and they want to make sure they safeguard the local market. So there's a lot of protectionism, call it trade war and all of that. That's why Ugandan traders went to court. But it's still ping pong because, like I'm saying, yes, we do need each other, but Kenya has an upper hand because of their nature and all of that. But I would like to think that we need to seriously address the question of standards. Because our standards are poor, and I've seen colleagues from government emphasizing that, and I think government has a great role to play. We cannot entirely push this blame to the traders, because if it were just the traders' business, we would not be where we are. The parliament gets to discuss this, that governments are, Kenyan government, Ugandan government are having mediation, if you like, about these matters. So I don't think we can abandon this entirely to the farmers. Government needs to come in. Our products are to a great extent substandard. So the Auditor General handed over his report, or the institution's report, to Parliament recently. And one of the things that they were flouting was the standard of some of the food that was supplied to government. I'll just quote for you from the Auditor General's report. So, 2,615 metric tons of maize flour that was donated by farmers to government, Office of the Prime Minister for COVID-19, was substandard, according to UNBS. 2,615 metric tons of maize. Substandard. Then there were also beans. So 2,017 metric tons of dry beans. This is the Auditor General's report, Oscar. 2,017 metric tons of dry beans that were donated by farmers to government during COVID, OPM, was substandard.
We believe that is good food for consumption.
Yeah, but we are saying it is not.
The farmers
you should know. So there's a story that I was watching, an investigative story. Was it on NTV or one of those? And they were actually engaging researchers, professionals, doctors, medics, and so on. And they were saying many of the cancers that we have today, especially among young people, are from aflatoxins. We ignore these things. Oscar, you were talking about, this maize coming to schools because that's what kids eat and so on.
And the beans.
There's many cancers among young people, according to specialists. And the greater bulk of this is because of these aflatoxins, which, we ignore. You see, in countries like ours, third world, we're thinking, after all, it is food. There's something to eat, so let's go on and eat. But Kenya is saying, no, let's focus on these things. Of course, yes, because of the standards, but also protectionism. In my view, going forward, we need to, a great deal, one, improve our exports. Our exports are still low, Oscar. We import twice as much as we export, and so there's challenges with that. So we need to improve that. Now I'm talking about the economic relationship between Kenya and us. But let's work on standards, government. I think UNBS needs to swing more into action. I've severally heard UNBS say we don't have adequate funding, adequate staff to go around and do the checking and all of that. That must be done. But Museveni is giving cars worth 600 million to Kusasira. Or what are you talking about? Is that a priority for our country?
No, but
I think we need to put our money where our mouth is. Yes, those are MPs. So Kusasila is what? Full figure is what? Bebe Cool is what? Let's be serious.
It's required.
The priority.
So anyway, that's my major point. You know, we need to focus a great deal on standards. Otherwise, our improving of the standards should not just be so that Kenya accepts our food, but also so that our local market consumes, you know, good quality stuff.
Thank you.
I first of all, I didn't know how serious these things are until this debate on maize came. I all along thought it is storage where we had the problem, until when we are told that even the fertilizers, the chemicals that are being used have an effect on our lives. I have never gone to a shop to buy maize and I care, or maize flour, and I care about how it was grown. The moment it looks good, I buy at my level. Now you can sympathize with the majority of the population. And I have been alarmed by the content of the food that we eat. I don't know if we'll immediately find a solution. When I chaired the committee on COSASE 2014-2016, I used to ask a standard question to all the accounting officers appearing before the committee, the level at which they are operating. And National Bureau of Standards then told me they are operating at about 25%, because I asked them, how many applications do you receive for certification every year? And it was about 10,000, but they're able to process less than 2,000. So the issue was staffing and funding. One other weakness I found in many government organizations, because if you're going to be charging for certification, and you have that money which either you use directly or you can apply to use directly, you can't be quarreling and demanding for more funding from the center. The same problem with the National Environmental Authority. They get applications, they are unable to process them. Yet each application is paid for. So from that day, because I asked them how many products are getting onto the Ugandan market every year, and they said of all the products getting onto the Ugandan market, including what is imported, they are only able to process about 25%. We went as a committee to the borders, Busia, Maraban, and all the rest. We discovered we are more enthusiastic as a country with revenue correction. Even before any structure is put at a border point, URA will bring a container. At the Maraba and I think Busia, by the time we went for these joint border activities, UNBS even had a room allocated, but they were not there. So asking them the pharmaceuticals that are being imported into the country, that was the bigger concern by the members of parliament when we visited. So there was complete absence. URA had more than 20 staff because we want money. But issues of health, all the health, including, by the way, National Drug Authority, they were absent. So I discovered that for us, it is good for all. So you just leave. So this government, the moment they collect money, the rest is up to you. And as I said, I didn't know how serious this matter is until this debate over maize started. The trouble is that I don't want to blame liberalization, because even when you liberalize, you have a duty. I went to Isingiro for the UN Millennium Village, and the UN staff had grouped the banana growers in that area, even found a market for them, attempted to force some standard. Because if you're going to be selling your matoke to UN agencies, they choose which matoke you will grow. And really, there was some organization. No wonder the whole of Isingiro district had migrated from where they are supposed to be operating, and they are all hovering around what UN was organizing. And I asked, because UN had spent just about 6 billion shillings to put up water, to put up everything. Yet, if you look at the budget, the amount of money we send to districts every year, at that time I think Isingiro had more than 20 billion. and you ask, what do you do with this money that comes here every day? If UN is able to use 6 billion to organize farmers, to enforce some standards, for you, what do you enforce? What do you use the money for? So this debate is going to be very good. I was hesitant because the people representing maize growers, the cartoon, they were very emotional in Parliament. That day, if you spoke about standards, you're going to be lynched. Because for them, they are looking for an immediate solution. How do we get these trucks are there? They are stranded. Whoa. So it was very, very difficult. But I also, at that time, I didn't have and had not benefited from those who know that actually the problem is not just Kenya, but all of us who are consuming. Because what I wanted to hear now, after listening to those who had the knowledge, what I wanted to hear is that the National Bureau of Standards has checked all the maize that was going into Kenya and discovered that this maize was suitable for consumption. And we have had this debate. I remember when we imported the food for EPDA from South Africa, which was not suitable for human consumption, because there was a deal. What the president did was to summon the chiefs of the military in Chisozi, got those who were exporting the food. They brought him a tin, and he opened and ate until Tumukunde asked him, I think he must have been chief of personnel, but sir, why are you risking your life? The government chemist, Makere, chemistry department are all saying this food is not fit for human consumption. I think Mr. Museveni may be like many of us. We don't pay attention to what we eat. Because I want to be honest, I have never cared. When I go and the food is not rotten, I just eat. Now I discover that there are many things that are in that food, even if it is not rotten, that actually are going to affect the quality of my life. So therefore, going forward, as we negotiate with Kenya and try to improve the products that we export, certainly for you to maintain a market, the quality must be priority number one. But also now I understand, and before I discuss what we export to Kenya, I think now I am more focused on what we eat. Yeah. So the debate in Parliament that I want to participate in now is not immediately to rescue the trucks of out going into Kenya and being returned, but what I personally eat and my family and everybody in Uganda.
Okay.
The other day,
Tony,
when government was distributing food, because sometimes Uganda, they will tell you we have enough, we want to export. But all the food was being brought from Malawi, from through Tanzania. So I don't know. But even that you brought, the quality had issues.
Thank you, Honorable Semujo. As Abdul comes on, yeah.
It could be something also to do with the politics of maize or the maize politics. Because in the last 2-3 years, government of Uganda and UN had made a deal that much of the food distributed to refugees, 1.4 million refugees in Uganda, should by and large come from Uganda. And that, and that closed out, the Kenyans closed out you could easily find that part of this could be mudslinging, which is trade war, is that once you have said that Uganda maize is not fit, then UN won't buy your maize. So your farmers your traders that have been supplying UN, because that's a big business, will be closed out.
Tony Kenchaza says, Oscar, we generally have issues as a country. Even for the boo-boo products, we as Ugandans lack wholesome trust in them. And then Okiyot Jr. on Twitter says, we had a customer in Kisumu who wanted 100 tons of maize. They needed a certificate for aflatoxins from a government body. We went to your UIRI. They told us they don't have testing. They didn't have testing for reagents. We went to a private lab. It charges in euros, and the results come out in a week. Another one is on Twitter. I can't find a tweet yet. Said they had a challenge with transportation. Goods arrived nearly a week later. The heat, the sweat, and then some of the products were thrown out. Abdul, it's a big challenge all around. You agree?
Yes, I do, of course. Semju is right. On that day, I was one of those who quarreled like I was a Japa dollar. Because you see, there are 2 points of conversation here. The first one is what you people are talking about, quality controls and standards. And that's a legitimate debate. In a country where you lack consumer protection laws, like Uganda, we are fed to almost garbage in each and every aspect. Everything, whether service or goods. And yes, why do we have to talk about standards? Because we're exporting. I think primarily the debate should be standards of what we are consuming. And today's discussion, I am a little bit excited because we seem all to be focused. And I've not seen any politics in it. Or for the first time.
No, you take care. Oh, and Joel had started.
No, at least it's so far so good. So, I think Uganda should protect themselves from what they consume. We need laws, very, very stringent laws.
Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Someone, Iron the Razak says we are very poor in everything. Imagine exporting our politicians.
Yeah, it's possible, but sometimes the saying is that
you deserve
the country deserves what it has. So really, that's not a big deal for me. So I think we need to work on our standards. I'll give you an example, and again, made it a little bit funny, which wasn't funny. That whereas the Uganda telecom industry had been licensed by UCC to provide a service for purposes of transmission of voice, data, and so on, they degenerated into two aspects. One, betting and lottery. And, you would buy a lot of airtime for purposes of betting and so on. And they were fleecing these Ugandans of billions of shillings. That's what they were doing outside their license. Then they went into a very good service, which was mobile money, but without regulation. And again, Ugandans were losing money. I went to court. I said, look here, we need protection. These guys are doing something which they are not licensed to do. And the court threw me out. The court said, we don't have a remedy for you here. You wait until UCC establishes a tribunal. And I was like, what's going on in this country? So when you see aspects like this, you know that we eventually will be affected in the long run in all aspects. And it doesn't, let me tell you, once you talk about maize to Kenya, even other countries are now on the alert. So anything coming from Uganda, doesn't it have these standards? So it's not the effect will not be about maize in export to Kenya, but even all other places. We go back to what Semju is talking about. Before you export, you need an export license. Did these people have an export license? Because this was formal trade. And how do you give an export license without getting satisfied that actually what they are seeking to export is fit for human consumption? So it's all about our institutions working. It's all about regulations. And I think...
Richard is talking about Produce Marketing Board.
Yeah, you see, like I had somebody when I was driving in late here talking about coffee. That coffee, their standards and so on. Do you know what happened? There was a coffee marketing board which was very easy to regulate and so on because it was one institution. Then we went and over-liberalized. Then the whole thing collapsed. Nobody wanted to touch our coffee and so on. So eventually we are losing out in millions of dollars. And had to wake up, and now there's a lot of Uganda Coffee Development Authority has come up with stringent, literally, they have even a police to go to the farmers, where are you drying the coffee from and so on. And when we are trying to amend the law, you saw the coffee farmers, some of them making noise. Say, no, these guys, why do they want to regulate us? Why do they want to know us? Including what the enlightened so-called enlightened people who are growing coffee. I don't want to mention the names, but really, I was really, really so surprised. But I hope this one gives to some of those people a lesson. That why are they not regulating milk and so on? No, it's not the one I had in mind. I had some other person.
Our argument was, why are you not registering cattle growers? Why are you registering only coffee?
You see? So that's where the problem is. So the debate, the conversation about quality controls and so on is very good. But then we go back to another point, and that is trade wars and protection. I don't agree with anybody who says that we need Kenya more than they need us. We actually need each other that's what I emphasized in Parliament. This bullying, big boy, I have to bully this guy. We cannot accept that. Let me give you an example. Kenya exports $1.2 billion worth of goods to Uganda, and you tell us they need us, so we need them.
We need each other.
That market, which is a Ugandan market of 1.2 billion, Kenya needs it as much as even ours. We do that. And some of the products which are being exported here, Oscar, do you know it?
No.
Go to Nakasero. Mangoes.
Irish.
Just go to even Karwere. Irish potatoes. Carrots. You see, it's not really that what we are importing from Kenya is such that Uganda will come to an end, because
How would you see the point people make, and I associate with it, is that if you went for a trade war like Amin did with Kenya, for you will collapse in 1 week because they control the border. That's the argument they make, and I agree with it.
No. That is also another bullying point. Let me tell you why. Kenya is not the only point of entry to Uganda. We also have another alternative. And you see, when we use the Kenyan point of entry, we don't use it for free. We pay. And we pay a lot of money.
And they get the money.
We pay a lot of money. So this is a mutual benefit.
Okay.
No, let me tell you, we can and we can survive. Do you know why? When they try to, let me give you the recent example. When they try to talk funny about the pipeline, what did we do? The oil pipeline, what did we do? And one of the reasons you are seeing of this mess, one of the reasons could be actually the change of that business. One of the reasons could be. So let me tell you, this thing is not as pedestrian as people would imagine that you... Oh, yes. Let me make my point.
Thank you.
So there is big business between both countries. We need each other. And second, the point the lady was talking about, and I think it was all SEATINI, Miss Nalunga, about the community. Because this is supposed to be a common market. We are supposed to be talking about integration, including political integration and so on. We can't engage in this sort of petty differences and conflicts. We rather look at the bigger picture. We need a bigger market, all of us. Of course, standardize the market. And we cannot afford to start fighting. And lastly, Oscar, you see, Kenya is different from Uganda in one aspect. The businessmen in Kenya are part of the policymakers. Uganda, the businessmen are not part of the policymakers. So how do they benefit from a ban like this? One, they are the biggest farmers in Kenya. They're the ones who benefit, not the consumers, because the consumer eventually will get a higher price if they for their product if they ban the Ugandan maize. But the businessman in Kenya, the policymaker may benefit. And that's the sort of geopolitics we need to talk about if we are debating this. And these guys who run our intelligence system should now having the analysis office, so that they guide the debate, that these are the issues, but they are just busy sleeping on their job.
Thank you.
You're just sleeping on your job.
So,
Don't produce nothing.
Do you give them the information?
The reporters are now 5 members of parliament, so they produce nothing.
Jane, I have Kahunga Matsko, one of our listeners, says we can't seek to participate in international trade while doing things taka-taka. Produce and cereals in Kenya are managed by the National Produce and Cereals Board with structured regulation. Then on
Yeah, but
Twitter,
because they produce at farm level.
so Jane Nalunga, conclude this topic. What do you take from this discussion on the capital gun?
Okay, thank you so much, Oscar. My take really is that we need to reorganize our production, and government has to play a key role. Joel here raised the issue of a trade deficit. We have been running a trade deficit. We export less than we import. And that's why we need to look at the bigger picture, that if we are to get out of poverty, get out of the debt trap, because we are indebted up to, we are drowning in debt. It's because we are not trading, we are not exporting. So we need to look at it in a bigger picture. And I think it's good that today we are talking trade, we are talking economy. And when we are talking about reorganization, Mr. Fonopondo here was saying, no, liberalization is good. We have liberalized, it's good. It isn't. Unchecked liberalization is not good.
Go on. Don't tap the table.
Okay, unregulated liberalization is not good, and that's why Madam Lydia here was talking about what should come in. Should we bring in this and should we bring in the knickers, the pants, second hand? That's regulated liberalization. You look at what should come in and what should go out. When it comes also to privatization, you also said privatization is good. Unbridled privatization is not good, because in any case we don't have a private sector to talk about. Most of our local private sector, MSMEs, and they are middlemen buying cheaply from the producers very cheaply and then selling. And you can't expect the private sector to talk about standards. It isn't. And that's why when we talk about, when we say here, government needs to do a lot of work, we need to go back and say, what should government do? Exactly. What work should be done? We talked about standards, UNBS. When you look at the budget until recently, what was being given to the Ministry of Trade, consistently 0.3%, 0.4% of the budget goes to the Ministry of Trade. But this is the ministry which has UNBS. It's the ministry which has the Uganda Export Promotion Board. You don't look at the linkage. I don't see any linkage between Ministry of Trade and Ministry of Agriculture. Ministry of Agriculture produces and we sell leftovers. There is no linkage. They are district commercial officers, but until recently they were not budgeted for. They were being paid for by a project of European Union. So we need to rethink. We need to reorganize our production if we are to stay in those markets which we have and sustain our stay there. I also wanted to say something about the whole issue of regional integration, and the issue of Kenya. Kenya is mercantilist, and any regional integration which doesn't have a champion, it won't, it will have difficulties. Look at the European Union. Germany plays a key role, SADC, South Africa plays a key role because the dominant partner benefits more from the regional integration. Kenya, apart from the goods, also the services, the banks. Uganda, do we have a bank in Kenya? But KCBs all over. We privatized it, we liberalized, we have no banking service. Exactly. So like we say, we need each other, but Kenya should also change the way they do their work. Recently, they have been... Recently, they want to go it alone. They have been negotiating with the UK. They are negotiating with the US. Bilateral, yet we are in a common market. And we have been telling Kenya, what you negotiate will affect us, but they don't care. So that's why I was telling my sister here that...
I do know that they are not on our rice arrangement, does it? They have a different agreement. On rice.
But we have a common market protocol. We are together. We have a CET, a common external tariff, and when it comes to negotiating with third parties, we need to go together. But Kenya doesn't want to do that.
It is a bully.
Yeah, it is, and it's mercantilism. They just want money, grabbing money all over, which isn't good for the community. But lastly, another point, Oscar, which I wanted to raise, when it comes to reorganizing our production, when you look at, we have been working with a lot of small-scale producers on the issue of standards in Nakaseke, in Masindi, and we helped Nakaseke district to come up with ordinances and bylaws. They were not there, but they were telling us that grade and a good standard should be rewarded, but there is no incentive to have a good maize, because today you ask somebody, how much is the cost of maize? Oh, it has gone down to 400. They won't say the first grade is 400, but the bad grade, the second one, is 300. All of it is the same. So there are no incentives. There is no carrot and stick when it comes to production. People just produce far, whether they have and then they sell. It's also really we can't move like this.
Without asking for standards.
but Oscar, before you go, let me ask you a question. Do you know that a few years ago we used to import maize meal from Kenya called Hodari?
Yeah.
And we no longer import.
But now we have also Jogo. You have Jogo on the market now.
Jogo. So really,
I was talking to my Kenyan friends and they say, for us we eat Jogo.
And
we don't eat your
listeners, we've had Jane Nalunga of SEATINI, and she's let's bid her goodbye.
No, the machines.
You go to the granite paste.
So,
you go to Nakawa, you never eat
Jane,
granite paste.
Executive Director, Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiations Institute, Uganda. Both of you, Jane and Abdul, I'll give you a chance to apologize quickly so that we don't have. So Jane, you go first by saying Kenyans only want money. You to disturb your next negotiation.
But everybody needs money. Everybody needs money because we're going to trade together. But it's how you get that money, really. All of us, even Uganda, we need money. That's why we are trading. And that's why we are talking about this ban, because we need the money.
Okay.